It's been almost a year since Parasite made history at the 2020 Academy Awards, and clearly I'm still not over it. This was such a fantastic thing for the Oscars, for South Korea, and for international films as a whole. On top of that, it was only a year earlier that Roma, another international film, was also nominated for Best Picture. Unfortunately, it didn't win, but the fact that it was nominated at all was so very heartening. These films being nominated for and winning in this category shows that there is indeed space for international films at award shows, at the Oscars, in America. But while Roma and Parasite were showered in love after their time at the Oscars, love was not all that they received, and the love they did get could definitely have been multiplied, and, I believe, would have been multiplied if they were Western films instead of international ones. Nevertheless, they did what seemed to be impossible, and now I'd like to know, who's gonna do it next? And if and when they do, what will they be met with? Welcome to the last part of a three-part series in which I explore international films at the Academy Awards. Part 1 was about the category Best International Feature Film and the issues surrounding it, Part 2 was about the struggle international films face on their way to Best Picture, and this part, Part 3, is about the future of international films at the Academy Awards. You don't have to have watched the first two parts before this one, but I do recommend it, so they'll be linked below. And of course, I'll also leave all my sources in the description as well if you'd like to learn more. In the last video, I talked about how both Roma and Parasite opened a door for international films at the Oscars, specifically for Best Picture. But now that the door has been opened, we need to ask ourselves if it will remain so, how we can open it even wider, and how we can respond to those who want to shut it. What will happen with international films going forward? In my head, there exists two categories of international-esque films. Films about people of color from other countries made by Western filmmakers like Slumdog Millionaire, The Last Emperor, and Lion, and international films made by international filmmakers like Roma and Parasite. Both have their merits, although it would be nicer if actual international filmmakers made those international stories. I can't knock films like Slumdog, The Last Emperor, and Lion, because at least they're being made. They're being found, produced, shown on levels greater to those than if they were fully international, and recognized for their excellence, and that's pretty damn cool. But take a look at the people who actually won awards for Slumdog.
Thank you.
Yeah, mostly white and Western. In fact, the only Indian people to be nominated and win for this film was A.R. Rahman for both Best Original Score and Song, and Russell Pukuri for Best Sound Mixing, which he shared with Ian Tapp and Richard Prick. No one else was nominated. The only other time actual Indian people were on that stage for this film was for Best Picture, and they were only there as support while white filmmakers received the awards. None of the Indian actors were nominated for their roles, even though they all received critical acclaim. Even the more famous Bollywood actors like Anil Kapoor and Irfan Khan, two actors who had been working in Bollywood for years and years and were well known because of it, weren't nominated. And I can't help but think that if these roles were played by Western actors of the same caliber, they would have been. Out of 11 nominees and winners, 2 were Indian. How about the people who won for The Last Emperor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, once again, mostly white. A large number of the crew was Italian, so they did have to work quite hard to get into Hollywood in the first place, but still, there was not a single Asian cast member nominated, even though it was a film about Asia with critically acclaimed performances from Asian actors. Once again, the only Asian people to be nominated and win were Ryuichi Sakamoto and Kong Soo for Best Original Score, which they shared with David Byrne. Out of 9 nominations, out of 15 nominees and winners, 2 were Asian. And what about Lion? Well, this one was actually a little bit better. The film didn't win any Oscars, but was nominated for a number of them. 6 categories, 9 people. And out of those 9, the one Indian nominee was actor Dev Patel. Finally, an actual actor of color from a movie about a country other than America getting a nomination. Hallelujah. He didn't win, but at least he was nominated. And yes, he was born and did grow up in Britain, but he's still Indian, so we're counting it. Is it possible that he had a higher chance of being nominated because he's British and grew up in Britain and has been working in British and American media his whole career? Yeah, maybe. Even still, out of 9 nominees, he was the only Indian person nominated and the only Indian cast member nominated. A similar thing happened in 2020 with Parasite. Thankfully, Korean people were largely those who made this film, so any nominations obviously went to Korean people. But at the same time, it was only the crew that was nominated, much like those other examples. Yang Jin-mo was nominated for Best Editing, and Lee Ha-jun and Cho Won-woo were nominated for Best Production Design, but it was only Bong Joon-ho that actually won anything. He received every single award, sharing Best Original Screenplay with Han Jin-won and Best Picture with Kwak Si-nae, but for the most part, it was all him. And it is a bit disheartening that the Academy is only rewarding Bong and completely ignoring the fantastic cast who gave it their absolute all for this film. I mean, this cast delivered some of my favorite performances of the year, and yet not a single cast member was nominated for their work. But there might actually be a reason for all of this. Voting for categories are restricted to members of the Academy who work in that field, aka actors will vote for actors, writers for writers, etc., etc. And in order for someone to be nominated, people have to know who they are. For actors to be nominated, other actors have to know their names and know what they've been a part of. And, once again, this is a lot easier for Western actors. So let's go through the cast of Parasite and take a look at their chances of being nominated. Let's start with Choi Woo-shik and Park So-dam. Choi Woo-shik would probably be vying for Best Actor in a Leading Role, and Park So-dam would probably be going for Best Actress in a Supporting Role. Of course, these are very competitive categories, and being known in Hollywood amongst Academy voters would help. So maybe they weren't nominated because they're more up-and-comers. They've definitely been in some exciting projects and were making names for themselves, but before Parasite, they weren't as big as some of their other cast members. So there you go. They were up-and-comers, so their names weren't widely known yet, so their chances of getting nominated were not super high. Except, this isn't entirely true. Western up-and-comers have been nominated for their roles in the past. Take a look at Carey Mulligan for An Education, Gabourey Sidibe for Precious, Timothée Chalamet for Call Me By Your Name, Saoirse Ronan for Atonement, then later Brooklyn, and Lucas Hedges for Manchester by the Sea, just to name a few. They were all relatively nobodies before, and then they got nominated for Oscars, and now they have successful careers. I think the only one of them that struggled a bit after their nomination was Gabourey Sidibe, and when you line her up with the others, I think you can figure out why she may have been treated differently. But that's a topic for another video entirely. My point is that it's not unheard of for virtual nobodies or up-and-comers to be nominated for an Oscar. Academy voters watched their movies, learned who they were, learned their names, and remembered them when voting for nominees. There should be no reason for those same voters not to be able to do the exact same thing for Choi Woo-shik and Park So-dam. And, it's not hard to know their names. I, for one, know that after I watch a movie that I really loved, I look stuff up about it, and one of the first things I learn are the cast members. And now you might say, but Oishi, in your last video, you mentioned how cast and crew members doing interviews and press is a big way to get their names out there. Maybe Choi Woo-shik and Park So-dam remained relatively unknown because they weren't getting as much press. Yeah, okay, you may have a point, but the thing is, they were doing press. Choi Woo-shik did a scene breakdown with Bong Joon-ho for Vanity Fair, Q&As at film festivals like Cannes and TIFF, and red carpet and backstage interviews at the SAGs. Park So-dam wasn't any less busy. She too did red carpet and backstage interviews, an interview with W Magazine, and participated in the Academy Conversations, which was uploaded on the Oscars official YouTube channel. Not to mention that videos of her doing the Jessica jingle were absolutely blowing up. And look, I'm not saying that people in YouTube comments are always right, but a lot of people wanted this nomination and it didn't happen, which is heartbreaking. So these up-and-comers were out there, showing their faces and making themselves known. But okay, maybe Academy voters are too busy to sit down and watch interviews. That doesn't mean they can't know their names. It's not like their names are some obscure information. You want to see how long it takes to learn them? There you go! Now you know. Not a single interview watched and you can still know them. Now you can vote for them, now you can recognize them for their work. Basically, if you can know Timothée Chalamet's name, you can know Choi Woo-shik's. If you can know Saoirse Ronan's name, you can know Park So-dam's. If you can vote for these guys, you can vote for these guys. Well, what about some of the bigger actors? What about Choi Yo-jung, Lee Sung-gyun, and Jang Hye-jin? Well, they have even less of a reason to be exempt from nominations. They've been around for a while. They've been in a number of projects over the years and made substantial names for themselves. And they knocked it out of the park with this film. Again, it's not difficult to know these actors and want to recognize them. But the one that boggles my mind the most is Song Kang-ho. This man is one of the most famous actors in South Korea. He's been working for decades and is beloved across the nation, and for good reason. Seriously, if you haven't seen another Song Kang-ho film, please do. And if you want a place to start, how about his other Bong Joon-ho films? That's right, not only has Song Kang-ho been in numerous movies in general, but he's been in many of Bong's other films. This is not a new duo. They have been working together for over a decade, and Bong film or not, Song Kang-ho has always brought 110% to his films, and Parasite was no different. That scene in the gymnasium, one of my favorites from the whole movie. Practicing the peach con, the final monologue, fantastic. Song Kang-ho is international treasure. And they couldn't even give him a nomination? I'm not even asking for him to win, although that would be nice. If they still wanted to give it to Brad Pitt, fine, but at least nominate Song Kang-ho. At least recognize him. This is the one that gets me the most worked up. I know not every one of these actors can be nominated. It's quite rare for that to happen. But not even one? Not even Song Kang-ho? It's really sad that Parasite wasn't nominated for any acting awards, especially with this talented of a cast. The Academy only rewarding Bong Joon-ho is like saying Bong was the only one who worked on this film, the only one worthy of recognition. And I'm not saying that Bong doesn't deserve to be rewarded, because he absolutely does. I'm saying that Bong isn't the only one who worked to make this film as great as it is. And Bong knew that very clearly.
영화를 함께 만든 우리 멋진 그 배우와 모든 스태프들이 여기 와 있습니다. 네, 우리 사랑하는 송강호님, 이선균, 최우식, 장혜진, 박명훈, 박소담, 이정은 멋진 배우들.
All our loving crew members and cast members are here with us today. Please send a round of applause to the actors and crew members of Parasite.
And our great cinematographer 홍경표, and production designer 이하준, and editor 양진모, and wonderful our 우리 모든 예술가들에게 찬사를 보냅니다.
I congratulate all the great artists here tonight.
Bong knew his cast and crew's efforts were just as important to the success of Parasite as he was, and he made sure that they were given their moment to shine, that they were given the recognition they deserved. I just wish the Academy gave them that recognition directly. So while Parasite as a whole won the biggest award of the night, and some of the crew was nominated, it's a shame that the fantastic cast wasn't recognized. I think Be Kind Rewind put it best.
Slumdog Millionaire won 8 Academy Awards. The Last Emperor won 9, and thankfully, God bless it, Parasite recently won 4. Yet 0 acting nominations, as if to say they're great in spite of their actors.
Thankfully, Roma had a better time with acting nominations, with both Yalitza Aparicio and Marina de Tavira receiving nominations, but it needs to happen more. This needs to change. Western and international films starring people of color have been nominated for and have now won Best Picture, but it's time we start recognizing the talented actors in those films, without whom the final product would not be what it is. By all means, the Academy can and should continue rewarding directors and other crew, but they need to start taking into consideration the people who appear on screen. Parasite's Best Picture win was met with tons of love and praise, as it should have been. But unfortunately, we live in a society where ignorance runs rampant, and there were some that came at this win with a much more negative view. One in particular was this guy, who made a video, and oh, what a video it was. As far as I know, the original video has since been taken down, so I'll be using footage from Amanda the Jedi and CRITIKAL, and even if the original video is still up, I cannot watch it without logical interjections from people I actually respect. So their channels will be linked down below if you want to go check them out. They're awesome. This dude was so pissed off that Parasite won Best Picture over other American films, and went on a whole annoying rant that was frankly exhausting to listen to. I've seen it like 4 times now, and I think I lost about 15,000 brain cells each time.
It already was nominated and won for Best Foreign Film. So if Best Foreign Film is the equivalent to Best Picture for the foreign films, why is it then allowed to be nominated for Best Picture?
Essentially, this is what his whole argument hinges around, that because Parasite was nominated for and won Best International Feature Film, it shouldn't have been nominated for Best Picture, and it definitely shouldn't have won. In regards to his actual argument, it's not much of one. Parasite was nominated in both categories because it was really that good. So good that the Academy wanted to recognize it in both. The same thing applies to Roma.
It was ridiculous last year when Roma was nominated.
Oh, of course he doesn't like Roma either. So this guy goes on to spit absolute drivel with little to no backing for any of his arguments. He mentions how international films shouldn't be qualified to win Best Picture, and how Best Animated Feature Film was created because Beauty and the Beast was nominated for Best Picture one year, so they created a whole separate category for animated films afterwards, and how he'd be okay with any other Best Picture nominee winning other than Parasite because at least they're American. And again, there are some major holes in his argument. In terms of how international films shouldn't be qualified for Best Picture, may I reintroduce you to the 2011 Best Picture winner, The Artist? That film was French, produced by France, made by French filmmakers, starring French actors. It was a silent film, so it wasn't nominated for what was at the time Best Foreign Language Film, because there was no language, but it was still an international film that took home Best Picture. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see anyone ranting about that. Is that because there are no words, so you didn't have to actually listen to a different language? Is it because French culture is closer to American culture than Korean culture is? Is it because the cast and crew were largely white and not Korean? I don't know, you decide. Next to the comment about animated feature. He's playing the whole thing off as if after the Best Animated Feature category was created, no animated films were ever nominated for Best Picture, and that was a good thing. And once again, I'm going to have to call bull. Enter Up and enter Toy Story 3. Both were nominated for Best Animated Feature in 2010 and 2011 respectively, which they both won. On top of that, they were both nominated for Best Picture in 2010 and 2011 respectively. They didn't win, but they both received those nominations even after a category specifically curated for them was created. Clearly, it's not uncommon uncommon for a film to be nominated in more than one Best of category, and once again, no one really had a problem with these nominations as far as I know. Finally, this dude said he would have been okay with any film winning Best Picture other than Parasite as long as they were American.
But it could have been Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Marriage Story, 1917, Ford v. Ferrari. I'm sorry, if you won Best Foreign Film, you should automatically be invalid to even be qualified to win Best Picture.
What? Hang on.
But it could have been Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Marriage Story, 1917, 1917, 1917.
Hey dude, 1917 is a British film. It was produced by the UK, made by British filmmakers, and starring a British cast. I mean, look at this. Look at this. This is the most British picture I have ever seen. I can hear the accent coming off of it. Oh, what's that? It's made in the English language. Oh, okay, and it's produced by majority white people? That's why Neckbeard is including it in his argument? Oh, okay. Look, I'm not trying to knock 1917. I love this film. It's incredible. The performances, the cinematography, the story, the effects, all amazing. It was the second movie I watched more than once in theaters. I saw it twice. It was the first movie I watched in IMAX, and it was the last film I saw in theaters before the entire world shut down. So yeah, it has a very special place in my heart. But it's not American. It's part of our squad, which is so close to American films that it makes people forget that it's not. Because better a British film wins Best Picture than a Korean one, huh? But we haven't even gotten to the most aggravating part yet.
Out of everybody in the United States or the America, how many people actually seen Parasite? Okay? I don't know what Parasite is. I don't give a about Parasite. It's fine. It won Best Foreign Film. You know why? Because it's a goddamn foreign film.
So yeah, a self-admission that he hasn't even seen Parasite, which in my eyes makes everything he has to say invalid. Even worse is that he goes on to say this.
What is more important to our culture than the Joker? About a movie that talks about mental illness not being taken seriously, about how people in high places look down and frown upon the poor, the poverty, and people with mental illness, and how we need to take this more serious. But no, forget all these social problems that Joker touched upon. Let's have a better woke agenda.
It would be funny if it wasn't so exhausting.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb, you just have to laugh through the pain. So if you haven't figured it out, Parasite is about all of those things. He just used Parasite's description to explain why Joker should have won over Parasite. Like, everything that Joker was talking about, Parasite did too. Except maybe for the mental illness part, I will give Joker that. But the larger theme of both those movies, the struggle of class divides, Parasite did in a much, much more artful way.
Why can't the best movie win the Best Picture?
It did, man. It did. Sorry you can't see that, 'cause you didn't see it.
So this video is not an informed, educated response to the Oscars and the Academy's decisions. It's a vapid rant with almost no valid points, dripping in xenophobia from start to finish.
Again, how many people in this country seen Parasite?
A lot. Like a lot. As I said in my last video, on President's Day weekend, the first weekend after it won Best Picture, Parasite made $6.8 million, making that weekend its highest grossing since its debut in October. In the end, Parasite grossed $53.4 million in the US and Canada and $211.2 million in other countries, making for a worldwide total of $264.4 million. If you watched Parasite and you genuinely didn't enjoy it, if you had real constructive criticism on it and didn't think it deserved to win because of that, that is a completely different story. Opinions can differ. People can enjoy different things. That's what subjectivity is. Subjectivity is not hating on a film solely because it's told in a language other than English and the people who made it are not American. That's called racism. This wasn't just a one-off thing. Twitter brought even more of this. A man named Bong Joon-ho wins Oscar for Best Original Screenplay over Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and 1917. Acceptance speech was, "Great honor, thank you." Then he proceeds to give the rest of his speech in Korean. These people are the destruction of America. Like, yeah, he won because it was the best screenplay of the year, and he gave his acceptance speech in Korean, the language he's the most comfortable in order to best express his thoughts and feelings. And this person tried to backtrack, saying that by these people, he meant the Academy and not Korean people, but again, anyone with half a brain can see this is absolute bull. Nowhere in this tweet did he even mention the Academy, but he made sure to mention the Korean language. Just say you hate Asian people and go. Like, it's less characters, it's more to the point, and it's more accurate to your sentiments. If this tweet was an essay, I'd take 2 marks off for your waffling and beating around the bush. Like, this tweet would be like asking an American filmmaker to speak in Korean at a Korean award show. It's ridiculous. Why would anyone choose to speak in a language they're not the most comfortable in during one of the most crazy moments of their career, especially when that moment sparks a highly emotional response that you want to get absolutely right, especially when you've got a very talented and capable interpreter by your side. It's illogical. Like, let's take the Césars for example. If you don't know, the Césars are a huge film award show in France, kind of like the Academy Awards for France. And American films and filmmakers have been honored at the Césars in the past, mostly in the category titled Best Foreign Language Film. Coincidentally, Parasite won in this category in 2020. Imagine if an American filmmaker won a César and delivered their acceptance speech in English with a French interpreter. I guarantee you, absolutely no one in that room would be mad about it. No one would get on Twitter and yell at them to speak in French. It's just not a thing. It would not happen. But when a Korean man speaks in Korean at an American award show, tiny-minded people's brains cannot comprehend it, apparently. So unfortunately, people like this actually exist in the world, and the bad news is, I don't think they'll ever go away. No matter how much we progress, no matter how many more international non-English language films win Best Picture in the future, there will always be ignorant people who find a problem with it for no reason other than racism. But while some people spew hatred towards films like Roma and Parasite, there are far more people who give these films all the love they deserve, and that's what matters here. You can't please everyone, and frankly, people like Neckbeard and Tweeter won't ever be pleased by international films, so there's no point in trying. What there is purpose in doing is making stunning art regardless. Art that everyone involved loves, that says something important, and that affects people all over the world. Because at the end of the day, Bong Joon-ho and the cast and crew of Parasite have not been harmed by these people at all. Bong Joon-ho is still a multi-Academy Award winner, and Parasite has still made history as the first international non-English language Best Picture winner. And no matter what anyone says, that's pretty damn important. There's a lot that's wrong with the Academy. I think if I've done one thing with this 3-part series, it's making that fact quite clear. Sometimes the Academy rewards people for the wrong films, excludes films that deserve to be rewarded, and gives Best Picture to the wrong movie. That last thing may have been the case in 2019, but most definitely was not in 2020. It's incredible that Roma and Parasite were shown as much love as they were, but the historical moment made by Parasite's win could have come earlier, seeing as it took 92 years before an international non-English language film won Best Picture. Moving forward, the Academy needs to acknowledge more international films, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it's necessary. In our current global filmmaking landscape, countries from all around the world are putting out bigger and better art than ever before, and we as a society are finally starting to take more notice. So when we find the next Roma or the next Parasite, people like me are not going to sit quietly and let it pass the Academy by. We're gonna be loud, we're gonna yell, and we're gonna make sure those films get the recognition they deserve. I don't know what the next international film to get to Best Picture will be, but I hope we don't have to wait another 92 years to see it. The art is right there for us. We just have to be willing to embrace it. In the wise words of Bong Joon-ho, once you overcome the 1-inch tall barrier of subtitles, you will be introduced to many more amazing films.
I'm ready to drink tonight. So until next morning. Thank you.